Let's be real. Containers have totally changed the game for developers. I mean, the idea of building your app once and then running it absolutely anywhere, it's incredibly powerful. But there's a huge catch, a wall that basically everyone hits eventually.
Yeah, spinning up a single container on your laptop, that's a piece of cake. But what happens when your app takes off? When you need to run and manage and scale hundreds, maybe even thousands of them? Suddenly you're asking, how do I keep them all healthy? How do I balance traffic? How do I roll out updates without bringing everything crashing down? It gets complicated, and it gets complicated fast.
And that, right there, is the huge challenge we're talking about. There's a name for this whole problem, and it's orchestration. It's the complex puzzle of managing a massive fleet of containers, and you absolutely need a powerful tool to solve it. So if you're in the AWS world, their answer to this whole problem is the Amazon Elastic Container Service, or as everyone calls it, ECS. Think of it as AWS's native, built-from-the-ground-up solution for container orchestration. It's designed to do all the heavy lifting so you can stop worrying about managing servers and just focus on your code. So how does this thing actually work? Under the hood. To really get a handle on ECS, you've got to understand its 4 core components. So let's break down the architecture, piece by piece.
Okay, everything, and I mean everything, in ECS starts with a cluster. Just think of this as your stage or your playground. It's simply a logical pool of computing power where all your containers are going to live and run. And that pool can be made of virtual servers you manage yourself, or it can be totally serverless, which is pretty cool.
All right, you've got your playground. Now you need the plans for what you're going to build. That's your task definition. It is literally the blueprint for your application's container. It's a simple text file, a JSON file, that spells out every last detail, which container image to use, exactly how much CPU and memory it needs, what network ports to open up, everything.
This blueprint isn't some crazy complex code. It's actually pretty readable. You can see right here, we're just telling it, hey, your name is Nginx, use the latest image, map port 80, and here's a little bit of memory and CPU. Every single container you run starts with a simple plan just like this.
So, if the task definition is the blueprint, then the task, well, that's the actual house you just built. A task is the living, breathing, running version of your task definition. When you tell ECS to run your app, what you're really doing is launching a task. This is it, your application, alive and doing its thing.
And finally, we have the service. And this is where the real magic happens. If a task is just one house, the service is the city planner who oversees the whole neighborhood. The service's job is to make sure you always have the right number of houses running. If one crashes, poof, the service replaces it instantly. Need to scale up for more traffic? The service handles that. It's the brains of the operation.
Okay, so we've got our cluster and our blueprints. Now comes the big one. Probably the most important decision you'll make when you start with ECS. Where are your containers actually going to run? And it all comes down to a choice between 2 launch types.
So you've got 2 main flavors here, EC2 or Fargate. With the EC2 launch type, you're the boss. You get full control. You pick the servers, you manage the operating systems, you do the patching. You get all the control, but you also get all the responsibility. Then there's Fargate, which is all about serverless simplicity. You just hand your container over to AWS and say, run this, and they take care of all the infrastructure underneath. And this table just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? EC2 gives you that fine-grained control, which can sometimes be cheaper if you really know how to optimize, but yeah, you're on the hook for all the maintenance. Fargate, on the other hand, just gets rid of all that headache. AWS manages everything. You pay per second for only the resources you use, and it's absolutely ideal when you just want to move fast and not think about servers. One of the biggest reasons people go with ECS is that it's not some standalone tool living on an island. Oh no! Its real superpower is how it plugs right into the entire AWS ecosystem, and that is a massive, massive advantage. I mean, it just works right out of the box. Your ECS service automatically talks to the application load balancer. It seamlessly pulls your container images from the Elastic Container Registry, or ECR. Security? Handled by IAM. Monitoring and logging? Boom, CloudWatch is right there. It's all connected, and it makes your life so much easier. Oh, and a quick pro tip here, and this one is a big deal for security. When you're setting up your networking, you really want to use the AWS VPC mode. What that does is give every single task its own dedicated network interface and IP address. It's like giving every house its own private unlisted phone number. It dramatically improves your security and isolation, and it's honestly the only way to go for any real-world app.
All right, we have to do it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Kubernetes. You can't talk about container orchestration for more than 5 minutes without someone bringing it up. So, how does ECS stack up against EKS, which is Amazon's managed Kubernetes service?
Look, it really boils down to this. ECS is just simpler. The learning curve is way friendlier, and it's deeply, beautifully integrated into AWS. EKS, on the other hand, gives you all the raw power and flexibility of the open-source Kubernetes ecosystem. It's more complex, for sure, but the big upside is that it's portable. The skills and configs can travel with you to other clouds.
Yeah, to put it simply, ECS equals AWS simplicity. If you want the most straightforward AWS native way to run your containers with the least amount of operational headache, ECS is your answer. It's built for speed and ease of use inside the AWS cloud. And on the flip side, EKS is all about that Kubernetes power. If your team is already full of Kubernetes experts, or if you need a specific tool from that ecosystem, or if having a multi-cloud strategy is non-negotiable, then EKS gives you all that power, just with AWS managing the tricky parts. Okay, that was a lot to take in. So let's wrap this all up with a super clear playbook. If you're going to walk away with anything, these are the most important takeaways and best practices to get you started with ECS on the right foot.
First off, just default to Fargate. Seriously. Unless you have a really good reason not to, it'll make your life easier. Second, always define CPU and memory limits for your containers. This is so critical for stability. Third, use Amazon ECR to store your images. It's secure, it's fast, it's integrated. Fourth, set up CloudWatch monitoring and alarms from day one. Don't wait until something breaks. And finally, please, manage all of this as code using something like CloudFormation or Terraform. It will save you so many headaches down the road.
And hey, one last little money-saving tip for you. If you have workloads that can be interrupted, think things like batch jobs or your dev and test environments, you have got to check out Fargate's spot. It uses spare AWS compute capacity and can save you up to 70% on your costs. I mean, that's just a massive discount.
So when you put it all together, what is ECS? It's the purpose-built engine for running your containers inside AWS. It's this beautiful balance of simplicity and powerful performance, giving you a reliable, scalable, and secure platform without that notoriously steep learning curve of other tools. And that really leaves you with a big question to think about for your own projects. As the world keeps moving faster and as developers need to focus more on shipping code and less on managing infrastructure, you've got to ask yourself, is this kind of serverless simplicity, the kind that ECS and Fargate offer, the future for how you're going to run your applications?